Testing, testing. Oh, I think I didn't put my volume on. Can you guys hear me now? Testing, 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 testing. Hello, 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 hello. Can anybody hear me? Oh, perfect. So you guys can hear me now? Okay. Oh, perfect. Awesome. So, okay. What I'm doing here is not a random, like, like, oh, whatever. Okay. So basically, last week, Douglas, thank you. Yeah, Douglas sent me his portfolio and resume and stuff, and I thought that I would do a review. But since usually per week, I usually get a request for like 5 to 6 portfolio reviews or like 5 to 6 references. I thought I wanted to do like a weekly kind of like general overview of portfolio review so that people can kind of follow along. And I think it's really nice to kind of see customized stuff in real time because every resume is kind of different. So first off, like I also told Douglas to send me a mock cover letter to a position that he might be interested in applying to, a resume, and also a portfolio. So we're gonna do like a quick 15-minute kind of thing and go over this. If you guys have any questions, definitely like put them in the comment stuff. So first thing that I told Douglas to send me is like a cover letter. For example, if he's applying somewhere. So in this particular case, he's quote unquote applying to like a Nickelodeon paid summership production kind of stuff. I've redacted some of the information here, but I'm gonna really quickly go through these kinds of things first. So the first thing that Douglas put in is that he's okay. He's looking for this position where he's like, "Good morning, my name is Douglas, soon to be a graduate of KSU State with a BFA in digital animation." And the first paragraph kind of talks about like that he's talking about Nickelodeon's most beloved character, SpongeBob, how it's helped him at a young, impressionable age to establish a strong ethics. Unlike many cartoon characters that I've watched and grown over the years, SpongeBob has always been the employee who has not only worked as fry cook with an unwavering passion, but is optimistic in working with his coworker. So I do like this first paragraph because it's kind of personal and so yeah, I do kind of like this first paragraph because it's personal, but also overall, this letter is a bit long because I've also been talking to my friend Siva, who used to be a DreamWorks India recruiter, about this as well too, to help me go over some of this stuff. But overall, like a recruiter might have only maybe 15 minutes to like an hour max to kind of like go through reviews type of things. So you want to keep certain things short and concise. So I think the first paragraph when you're talking about the Nickelodeon's most beloved character, it's good because it's relating to the work that you are applying for in the company you're applying for, which shows passion. But also that could probably be condensed down a little bit more into maybe like 4 to 5 sentences. That's what I would say. And then for the next part, which is more important, it says like speaking on the topic of like coping with positive mentality. I would like to share my artist ability with your production and development department. My education has trained me to be flexible, variety of different art styles, inclusive of towards the needs and direct desire from creative colleagues. This is good, but the one thing is that it's quite vague. A lot of times you have to think of this in the perspective of the recruiter as well and the person reading this. So for example, if you're a recruiter and you're going through maybe 200 resumes or 200 cover letters, right? You'll see a lot of things that will say, "Oh, I'm a team player, I'm enthusiastic, I'm dependable," and things like that. So you want to find things that actually differentiate you from all the buzzwords. So if you have a specific example, those would be better to kind of put in, like maybe even just one would be like, oh, like, oh, at school, working on this like specific project has taught me like to deal with this and that kind of thing. But whatever it is in your experience, it would be more specific. For example, for me, I would mention something like, oh, I've during my internship at these various studios, I have learned to kind of work with people of different culture and background and put in specific studio names. So that way it shows that like, oh, I have experience and like I am used to working with a variety of people. So that's kind of thing. So the other part of this would be like then it's the end. It's like okay, my goal is to contribute to the overall success. I like the last part of it. Thank you for your time and consideration. Always good to thank people, and because I'm ready, ready, ready to be a part of Nickelodeon Studio family. Nice enthusiasm kind of thing. So I think the main thing about this particular thing is cover letter needs to be kind of shorter. Also, you don't really need to put the address on top because you're not actually mailing it out. And so right now. Thanks. So I think the main thing about this is just that the top part you can totally remove this because you're not actually sending it somewhere. And also the good morning part is a little bit weird because you don't know what time the recruiter is actually reading this or whoever is reading this. So usually you can say like hello and stuff like that. Having specific names are also definitely good. And I know I redacted it. Douglas had the names in this. I redacted this just for personal information's sake. Um, so that's with the cover letter right there. And now let's take a look at the resume first. So with the resume, first thing right off the bat is there's a logo here. And for another sake, it says Southeastern Marketing Associate. So I'm guessing this is something that you've incorporated. But also it can also cause confusion because you're applying for a specific position, but you're using a logo that like symbolizes corporate or company. So my suggestion would be that if you are submitting this for a job or a position, you might not want to put a logo that is not necessarily telling of anything much, or in this case it says marketing associate. So basically it's like, oh, are you applying for something marketing? I would probably, if I'm applying for a job, remove the logo altogether or try to incorporate like my name and stuff in there. And the other second part is that your name and your position that you want to do is on the bottom, which says concept artist Douglas Klein. I would probably put that in the top or somewhere more prominent that people can see first, because then it'll be like, okay, this person is applying for something. Like right now I kind of have to search to kind of see like where this is and who you are. The other part of it would also be that proofread, because like this part, like sometimes there's like typos, like Illustrator right now it says Illustrator. So these are the first very easy things right off the bat to do is proofread, or send it to a couple of different people that you know to look at, because these are really minor things, minor details, but they also show how much care you put into the stuff as well. So that's the number one thing you want to check out first. Along with that too, right now in your skill set, there's a lot of different things in there. It says digital and traditional, which is fine, but the main thing is you kind of want to focus more on what you're good at. Like sometimes as like especially when people are new and they don't have a lot of things, they try to tend to put a lot of things to make things look full. So we want to try to kind of avoid that and put in things that are important. So when we say things like digital, if you say you want to be a concept artist, then probably you'll want to put things like, okay, I want to do, like digital painting and storyboarding as a big thing. Everything else, like it says like animatic production, storyboarding. Animatic production and storyboarding are basically very similar already. So that's something that like if you want to put like if you want to say just three things, it would just be like something like, oh, concept art, like digital painting, animation, storyboarding, something like that. But I would suggest also trying to avoid things that you might not be as good at as well too, because sometimes maybe the recruiter looks at that and they want to put you in that position instead of a position that might be open. The second part of this also is I would say traditional skills, pretty good, but the thing is you also have to look at what position you're applying for. So the other tip that we have is that look carefully at the application in terms of like do some research where like what kind of position am I applying to. If you're applying to a position which says like PA, production, like production assistant, versus something that's a creative stuff, and this differs from company to company. For example, if you're applying for an animator position versus a previous position, then you want to highlight your animation work, not like your concept art as much. And if you're applying for a coordinator work, like a manager kind of thing, then your portfolio work is not as important because you're actually going to be doing a lot more coordinating than actually doing creative work. So in this case though, like usually like Nickelodeon has a lot of varieties things you can do, but this one just says production and development. keywords here that would be like here, like when you go down to available internship, it says animation and live action. So just now we saw that you said that you're applying for a summer paid internship production development. In this case, you can even add things like, oh, animation production, because now they know, okay, this person wants to do animation production versus live action production, because this is what there is in there as well too. So this particular posting doesn't have too much about the qualities that they want, but then they say that like they're not looking to get someone who just gets coffee and stuff like that. Well, we'll know your name, we'll view your internship as a true mentorship program and a chance to immerse yourself into meaningful projects. So therefore, you're probably going to be more involved with being able to actually do things on projects as well. So highlighting your experiences here and also your digital stuff is definitely a good thing to do. In the experience part, we see that there's just one project right now, and that's fine because like sometimes people are like, oh, I don't have a lot of experience yet. I just came out of school. Some things you want to do is join things like global game jam or different competitions, because this way you can actually look for things that you can put on your resume that's other than your school stuff. So with that being said too, the other thing you want to do is over here it says independent game project, whatever the project is and what you've done on it. You've put a lot of things that you've done on it, but maybe you might be able to condense that. What is the main thing that you did on this particular project? Was it coordinating? Or was it previs or something like that? Things that you want to highlight, you want to put in as like a title. Like for example, like project management. And then you can put little bullet points, but this is too many bullet points. I would stick with maybe three bullet points, something like that. Because for example, saying something like you can always also, instead of bullet points, something like overall production, coordinating and managing, including hiring key visuals and supervisions from pre-production to post. So those things concise it a little bit more so that you can kind of like not have too many bullet points that are not kind of related. Second part is having the volunteer experience is good. Another typo over here, it says experience, not experience. Is that whatever you do for like different volunteer organizations, it's always nice to put a one-liner about what your role is. For example, if you say, oh, I volunteer from MomoCon, you know, MomoCon door volunteer, or like Atlanta Film Festival, like liaison to filmmakers. Those things also are really good because right now I can see your volunteer experience, but I don't actually know what you're doing there. So it doesn't really give me a lot of clues. And the other thing you might want to write to is what year it is. Because sometimes like if a person went to MomoCon that particular year, for example, you can always relate. Like the recruiter can be like, okay, maybe if I take this person in an interview, it'll be like, oh, I see that in this year you volunteered for MomoCon, you know, like, oh, I was there too, blah, blah, blah. So it's a little bit more specific. The other thing as well is software. You want to put the software that you are is most related to the job up first, but also in this case, something like Wacom tablet Cintiq, Mac Windows, not really important, just because these are things that is not very like software based. It's nice to know that, okay, you know, you can do drawings, but I think those are things that your portfolio will also kind of show already as well. So contact information is okay. Definitely like put it somewhere up. The other part that I would say too is layout. Making sure that your layout is kind of consistent is also a good way to show that you put in care to it. For example, if you see this contact part, let's see, let's zoom in a little bit more. This line is not aligned with this line. So these are very simple things that, like, if you can, try to make sure that your design, especially if you're going for something that is a designer-ish kind of position, is kind of a little bit, there's more care in the layout. Even in here too, you can see that these are all bolded, so it's a little bit harder to read when things are bold too. So bold should be used for when things are headlines or titles, and keeping things consistent. For example, here it will also be like, okay, you have Adobe Photoshop, but then now Illustrator has a bullet point and a bullet point and a bullet point. So why when something's like, why are they bullet point and or when they're not, or if there's or in this case, I feel like these are things that you use to separate the stuff, but it kind of reads not that clearly. So you might want to think of a design motif, because here you have a square while here it's a dot. So if you're going to use a dot, maybe you want to use a dot throughout, and if you're using a square, you maybe want to use a square throughout, as well as if you're aligning certain things like center align versus left align. Those are things that you want to kind of keep consistent as well too, and also looking at the size of the fonts and stuff like that as well too. And these things are, you can actually get templates online to kind of like work with as well too for resumes. That could help you with that, because although it's not like the biggest thing in the world, that like in terms of like the design, it does kind of help you pop or stand out more in different places. And when things look like they're aligned, they kind of look more professional. So let's look at your website, your web stuff. So here you said that you want it mainly to focus in concept art. So we want to kind of maintain a little bit of consistency when we're looking at from resume to cover letter to websites. So when we're looking at your website right now, one of the things is that you said you want to do concept artist, and on the website it says animation and illustration portfolio. So if you're kind of thinking like, okay, I want to really do concept art, then that's something that probably should be on your website, not like animation and illustration. So it's okay to have like things on the side, like animation, illustration stuff, but whatever is your main focus, that's the first thing you want people to see. Second part of this too is that like I see things as individual, collaborative, and animation work projects. So here you don't actually have to say animation project. You can say animation, or like individual projects. For example, when we come in to look here, these are mostly illustration, a couple of turnarounds, and so therefore this could be something like more like concept or like the design part of things. So looking at some of your works, you want to put your best work forward, not just every word work. So therefore, what I would say is that like when you see these different things, choose your best work. Something like this one and this one look like they belong together. One, two, three. I always suggest that if that's the case, make it into a set. People usually like sets better. And when you put things and you make them into a set, it kind of have a little bit more appeal. And since we know these are the three same things, if somebody has to come over and click on three different things, it's kind of like you're making them shift through to find the stuff instead of curating things and putting the best work forward. Same with this as well. We're looking at these two, and we have, okay, this one is like a model turnaround, while as this is a character kind of face. So you want to put them together and you want to give them a sort of a description because I don't have a context. For example, sometimes I'll be asking like, oh, why is this this particular concept work a little bit more rough and this one a little bit more like different styles? When having those explanation can say, oh, this was designed to be low poly in a game. So therefore, it would be something like, okay, low poly game. Okay, I can see why you decide to make that design choices. While as like if you make something more high def and you say this is for animation, it's optimized for animation, then there's like a difference in like the design choices that you've made. But then you've actually made that clear. The other part of it too is these are nice, but these are not concept. These are basically illustrations, like mentioned. So so if you want to do concept work, you definitely need to put more concept stuff in. This could semi be concept, but usually I think one of my friend Dan, he took a quote that was really cool from Twitter, which said that like concept art illustrations are not concept art. Illustrations, if if it doesn't lead to anything like kind of like more bigger story development, it's basically illustration. So in this case too, when we're talking about concept art, we want to see some world building, and I'll show you a little bit of examples from a portfolio from three people that I've asked to share with you as well too. And even this is more like basically these are illustrations, I would say, more than a little bit. This could possibly be a little bit more concept art. I would say that like I would probably try to keep them a little bit more format shape of like 1920 by 1080, but not necessarily all the time. But those are things that show that like if you use a film, that's what a style frame would look like, type of thing. So let's look at collaborative work. So in collaborative work, this is definitely interesting. So we have like now this kind of thing is something that is a little bit more appealing because it's kind of showing a step and a thought process and a set. So in this, I can kind of see like, okay, there's a draft, there's a the character, like the color kind of exploration, as well as like exploration of her different scarves. Yeah, and this one. One thing you want to make sure is the layout that you're using. If there's something like this that requires more being able to see details, you want to make it bigger. Because right now I will not be able to read this or be able to tell what this is or look at it in depth. Another case as well too is like if I see like you can always put like this first and then you put the next one after or the next one after as well. Like this is really cool. So I would say like something like this as a bigger version would actually help, because then you'll see like, okay, this is the final product. These are the other initial concepting and sketch and stuff like that. So you actually have this to like what other people did. When you're doing collaboration, one of the things you could do is you can put an overall information about what everyone did in a very, very brief kind of way. But when it comes to explaining things, this is your portfolio. It's about you. So you just want to highlight the things you did. So these two might be gone, but you can say here like initial concept, color palette. So basically you're putting your role into it, without having to put too many things, because I would have to look through and say, oh, what are all these other stuff? I don't know these people, so that doesn't really make sense to me. Something like this as well, yeah, like I would say take out some of this stuff where you can just say I did the color, concept, and background, as something like that, and just show your initial kind of like work into it, or put a little bit of an explanation underneath. Oh, like, oh, for this project, this is what I did, blah blah blah. Okay, but overall, still one more thing is, I know you took out the collaboration process and put it on the bottom, like what we say, how it's made. I think also you kind of need to explain what this project is as well, because somebody who's not worked on it for a while, they'll look at it, they'll be like, oh, what is this about? What kind of work is this? So that would be the thing that you want to do, is like a little bit of very brief, very, very brief information about this was a collaboration game project with a team of 14 people. On this project, I mainly did this, this, and this, and and within a 10-week project, something like that. Those kind of work as well too. Uh, and then something like these, like I said, these are repetitions of three different, like the same thing. So you want to put them together and consolidate them, or even these are the basically the same things as well too. So right now, like there's a lot of quote unquote repetition, like this and this. So for example, if like someone doesn't have time to go in and click on the stuff to read who did the things, you want to make it easy for them to kind of see the stuff. So your collaboration work is very interesting. So, but also the other thing you want to look for is the kind of company you're applying for as well too, and if like certain things are more or less appropriate for that channel as well too. Let's see, animation project. So like I said, if you want to be a concept artist, you might this might not be an important section as much, but you still, if you want to highlight things, you want to show your best work. Something like this, I would rather suggest putting in one reel instead of very many little things. So that way, like a person who comes in, they'll click on one reel, they'll see your best work instead of having to scroll through so many things here. So for example, when we're looking at this is a nice exploration process, but what we want to focus on if you're going to put on animation work is, are you focusing on the design with like small little animated movements, or are you focusing on the animation itself? Because if you're focusing on the animation itself, you want to put things up that is more or less polished. So this one has like a voice-over kind of thing, but you can see that this is more aligned along a limited frames. So it's not like fluid or anything. So those are things to be aware of, and it doesn't really have a lot of anticipation or the 12 principles of animation as well. So this was also interesting. It's a stylized fire test. So this is something that's probably nicer to show. But also when you have tests, one of the things that we have to be careful of is if the animation is too floaty. So that means that, like, for example, if fire in real time goes like this, like, it goes whoosh, burns, you don't want to have it go like this. Like instead of like it being like half a second or 1 second, you made it 5 seconds. Unless you're telling people, okay, this is a slow-mo version, then you can show a faster version as well too. Because when we're looking at animation, certain things, like when it looks a bit floaty, it just kind of shows that it's not real time. Yeah. So similar with this one as well too. It's like it's not a lot of action. It's not a lot of dialogues or what we're looking at. Maybe it's a little bit more like a. This one is more lines of limited animation and motion graphic pieces. Even something like this, if you're planning to pursue a little bit more in-depth in motion graphics, you'll want to study layout a little bit more as well, and also readability. For example, over here, like some of the words are not very clear, like break it to you. It's a nice way that you want to kind of make a cool effect, but the readability is very low. The type of typography you're using is also, it's a little bit more display font. So if you're having someone to read a lot of different things, you can see, like for example, the U, it's not very easy to read, and the S also, because the way of its design is not actually designed to be used as a body font. So you want to kind of like look into that as well, that, like, do a squint test. Is it too hard to read, as well as the speed at which everything is going as well. So I think that's like the basis of like the covering up the stuff. Let me now show you just like a couple of really cool portfolios from the stuff that we're looking at. So I've asked Ida if I could check out her stuff. So Ida used to be a friend. Oh no, we can't reach that. So I guess, sorry. Yeah, she did kind of mention that it might be expired. So let's go. So let's go look at Yuriko. Yuriko is my friend who currently works at DreamWorks as a previs person. So this might be a little bit more relevant. So the way that Yuriko does is that she has her work. It's very polished. It's very nice, and this is what concept art looks like. Is basically it's kind of like not just an illustration, but it tells like a world building. So you can see that like a little bit more of like, okay, you see like this kappa, the Japanese kappa monster, and it's in an environment. So you see like, oh, more than different environments. She even does lighting tests as well too, to kind of see time of the day. The other one is here is so I'll leave this link into my comments actually, so that you guys can also see if interested. Example, and for example, she does props kind of exploration, and her props exploration, she kind of puts like, okay, what kind of material is this, like a little bit of highlight of the main majority things. She does like three little key explorations of different types of stuff. She's definitely done way more, but she just shows like maybe like three of the best to kind of the, and you can see like from this one to this one, the other scooter also has a little bit more grime on it. So when you're doing props and things like that, you want to see the environment it is, and like kind of like who it's for, the character. So instead of something just being cool, can the character actually use it, and like what kind of condition it is definitely one of the things you want to think about, because like a lot of times when you do something that looks new, even in a world that you know is a post-apocalyptic worlds might have things that are a little bit more older and dirtier, so you want to think about that as well. And she even did a little mechanical turnaround of the image as well too, so this is a really nice thing to show. So it shows that she can do like a good turnaround kind of breakdown. So those are nice. And when you do turnarounds, it's really nice to include the ruler lines sometimes, so that you can see that when you're doing the work, is it actually a good turnaround. Another key tip for this is sometimes if you are not good with dimensions, like I'm not really good with dimensions, I use 3D programs like, you know, like it could be like Maya, Blender, it could even be like Google SketchUp, to kind of just incorporate that to kind of make sure that you've got like a nice solid turnaround. Then you go downwards and you see like she's doing like, see, it's like a style frame like of mice and men, and then she's doing a lot of like visual explorations of just like world building. And even here she has a color script of her little animation, so it's just showing like, okay, overall like how she thinks about the different colors coming in from different parts of your animation project. So in the beginning it's bright, and then it goes into dark when it's conflicted, and at the end it comes to bright again. So there's that as well too. And then she also has little exploration of objects, because you can design things in more than one way, and that's basically what a concept artist does, is that they try to put things into design. So we'll see even here she made like a kind of like a study of like exploration, you know, like different types of lighting, different props, who lives here, you know, like you can think about that as well too. Or even like, oh, like when you're looking at exploration of stuff like different types of sofa, different types of lamps, different types of, because characters are not the only thing with personalities, also the environment they live in as well too. And these are just extra stuff that she has at the end. So I would suggest that even though this one's like a little bit more like graphic design, illustration, you can always include a little bit of that, but you don't want to put that first. You want to put whatever is relevant first on top. Then she also has, you know, like her personal works. Now this, you know, like is places where she can have more fun with. And then a Radish Tail, that's where she does her own stuff. So you can see these are all grouped. So it seems more appealing, because when, for example, if I go into a Radish Tail, I can see, oh, this is a, you know, she's an art director and she did the cleanup animation lead. So even had a little bit of movement moving here. So I can see this. She has her included her color script. She included her like tree stumps exploration, different types of like different plantations and stuff like that. Also vegetations, and this is cool, because this is showing that she led the artwork on the background, so that she is not just that, oh, I'm making this stuff, but you know, like, oh, if you're asking other people to do your work on your animation, what kind of guide or directions did you make for them to follow? So this, she even has like, okay, this is what you're gonna do, you know, block out the shape using this brush, then go over with this brush. So that's how she's able to keep her whole film uniform, even if she had other people work on it. So that's really a plus if you're looking for someone who can be a lead, versus someone who's just going to do concept art or lead concept art as well, because when you get to a lead point, you're actually leading other people, so being able to like create instructions are also a very good thing. And then we go down, then she has all these other explorations. So that's really cool. I haven't seen Yuriko's resume yet. So there's here. Uh, so she's done like putting her experience first, important parts, maybe her projects, additional experience. Like I said, like she had volunteer experiences. She actually said what she did, like a student volunteer, and then like professor's assistant, light and object, and then her education and her skill set. So what is important, and she even put a little bit of her interest in it too. And then here, like I said, when you're talking about experience, you can say, okay, this is a visual development artist, so that's her title, where she worked at, and when is from, like the project begin and end, because those are good things. Because while versus when you're working on a short-term project that's 10 weeks versus something that's a year and a half, that's a different type of like workload as well too. So that's kind of good to show so that people can kind of gauge how long you took on certain things. Or even if you say this project is not as much polish, then I had more or less time to do on this as well too. So that's good. The other one we're looking at is better. Amanda. Yeah. So Amanda is a character designer, also at DreamWorks. Used to work at Pearl Studio. Amanda's stuff is really exceptional. I really like her style and everything. But also she has a lot of very dynamism inside of her character. But one of the things I want to take note is a lot of things are in sets. And you'll notice that when people put things in sets psychologically, it looks more appealing than one-off. And it seems like more like a world than it is an illustration. So when we're looking at the question from Douglas, does the artist's resume need to be graphic art design focused versus word style? Getting a lot of comment. So actually, you can actually create more than one resume. So sometimes, like when you're running through resumes, nowadays people also have LinkedIn resumes as well too. So it really depends on where you're applying. If you're giving your resume to an art director, even if like a recruiter, you want to make it a little bit artistic, but you want to make it also readable. While word style document too, those are good for like kind of like searching. So for example, like if you have the keywords on there, that's important as well too. But there can still be a balance of a resume that is still well designed and also incorporate some artistic stuff in it. For example, when we were looking at Yuriko's stuff right now, just now when we were talking about this, so you can see there is some like little bit of artistic stuff in this, like for example the way she lays things out, and also like the color choice that she uses, and also the typography and the repetitions. So when I talk about typography and repetition, it's, for example, it says here, like this is in bold, so her titles is in bold, and then she puts after that the studio she worked at, and also the duration, and she repeats that. So when she repeats that, and you can see that all her bullet points are aligned as well. So when you repeat that, that is actually already a design element. I think one of the misconceptions is that when we're talking about artist resume, that you always have to put artwork. Not always necessarily. It's a bonus if you can definitely put that. But in terms of if you're going to think about like a nicely put out resume, then you would think that, okay, is this something I can read that is easy to read for a resume? And that is like one of the things that is the difference between graphic designer versus illustrators and stuff like that as well too. So in this case, you don't have to have a design that's overly powerful, but if you're going to design it, it should relate to your stuff. I'll show you an example of that in a bit as well too. And so what I'm saying is that like it should be something that if a recruiter comes or even a normal person comes, they read it, they look, they're like, okay, it's clean. I know what this person wants to do, and it's easy to read. Because if we're looking at this kind of layout, I always say, okay, there's contact education software, but as I mentioned, I don't know who you are until I reach the end, and I don't know what you want to do until I reach the end as well. And it's a very small kind of thing. So you want to put it up instead where we can see it, as well as when I see your logo, like are you a corporate or are you a person, and what are you trying to apply for, like is it art or marketing? When I see the word marketing in there, then I already get a second thing where it's like, oh, are you applying for marketing or are you applying for something artistic? So I hope that helps a little bit, but I'll show you an example of what I mean in a bit too. So going down in Amanda's stuff, you can see again, she's doing world building. So when we're talking about world building, it's like she's having the same character. She has different styles. She can do different styles, but in each of the stuff that she put, it's almost like it's in the same world. She also has like, like live action studies and stuff like that too, and those are fine, as long as you have things like this, like the world building, incorporating things in. And if you notice, her characters are also have their own personality poses too. So when she comes down, she's posing these characters and she's showing interaction. Like when you have a world building, sometimes you can show like more than one character and how they interact together. So you can see like, oh, this character seems to be carefree. He's putting his feet on her head, and you can see this character is like she's looking like, oh, she doesn't want to have her hair brushed. So you look at this figure, she looks like someone who's a little bit more upkept, like like more graceful, versus this character where she's like, oh, I don't want to have my hair. So it kind of shows interaction, which is really good. Even with this too, you see like the little turtle, and you see like they're playing. It's fun. It's like in the middle of a style frame. So you're basically looking at something where you're like, oh, I'm watching the middle of a movie. So those were really good things to put down, and not just like normal pose. When you're doing a turnaround, of course, it should be like a normal posing, but or you can get a little bit creative sometime as well too. But you want to show like that you can do anatomy and turn around. But when you're starting to do things like exploration, it's really nice to show you've done research, for especially research. So for example, then you have this turnaround. You see he's in his normal pose, but then when you show the big character, he's in like a pose that he would be like, he's putting his hand on his neck. He looks like he's a little like a bit humble, kind of a doctor type of thing. And you have like the different character expressions as well too. And the expressions that he has is really like vibrant and bright as well. Then when we're going down here, you can also see that like there's like characters turn around, but here, like for example, she's showing that she's using reference. So it's always good that when you're doing something, especially if you want to be a previs like concept artist, to kind of do more research into the things you have. If you're working about things about space and you're doing like designing a space car, for example, then you want to kind of look like, okay, what kind of terrain is this? What kind of environment this is, and incorporate that into your design. Or like, okay, not so it doesn't feel like you're just haphazardly grabbing design from stuff without actually researching about things as well too, especially in this culture and things like that. Things can get offensive and stuff for different people, but also showing research means you're putting care into actually what you're doing. As a concept artist, I want to design and have concept, so therefore I'm actually putting in research to what I'm doing. So I'm not just pasting things there and say, oh look, this is a car, and when you're thinking about like in the real world, the car doesn't work. So like I said, this is a good one to kind of show. And now at the end, she kind of put things that can look a little bit more like illustration and fan art, and that's fine as long as in the top part you kind of show things that are actually relevant to the field that you're in. Then we're looking at like experiment and career, same thing, career related experiment. So one of the things is as you go along and you get more experience, there's things that you can leave off. But while you're still finding a job or like more of a rookie, you'll want to be as um, putting attention to detail as possible as you can to a lot of different things, because like I know like some people in the industry that I know, once they have like a lot of experience already, their IMDb is basically their resume. They don't actually have to like kind of show, like they don't really update their stuff as much, but they already have those under their belt. While you don't have that, you need to kind of work on that to kind of compensate for that, because you have to work twice as hard. You're not in the industry yet, so you want to definitely do that. So one of the things I want to show, this one is from Jules. So she's well, not sorry, the Jules Primus. Okay, so this is one of our incubatee, who worked with us on her stuff, and then she's also like been revising her portfolio and like stuff like that as well too. So this is a cool way of like budding animator. So she's starting off with her personal works. So personal works. So one of the things that she's doing really well now is putting things into sets. Because when you put things into sets, they look more coherent, they look more comprehensive, as well as doing character exploration. So she's actually showing some of her work in progress. It's like, oh, how am I designing the upper body and torsos? Like how am I actually doing the chin? I'm putting in thought and work processes to that, and she even put a little bit of explanation for that as well too. So the other thing is when you're doing your as a concept design artist, resume is important, but more importantly would actually also be your portfolio. So you want to be showing things that you can. Same thing like this, when she's looking at props and stuff, a lot of these things are in sets. So it shows that she can also design environments, she can design a lot of different stuff, but overall it's more appealing than, for example, if she only put like for one of these characters. If she only showed you, for example, this dude, and then every other project sorry, I can't see, but if, for example, if she only showed Carmine Falco, she didn't show Nana Lisa Falco, she didn't show any of the other stuff, then her next project had something else instead. Uh, it's not as much world building as when you show things all together. Then I was like, well, wait, and so here, this is the one that I want to show you in terms of resume, when you're saying like, oh, can I incorporate artistic stuff and still have it be like a written kind of resume? So when we're talking about this, see, Jules actually has her illustration there. She has her own avatar, but it matches with what she's doing. It matches with what she's going. She has her big name right there. She has like visual development and concept design. So it actually shows what she wants to do, along with her portfolio and her contact information. This is really good because I don't want to spend my time sifting through different stuff. Then I go down and she has her skill set. This might be a little bit too many things actually, but the main thing is that like it's relevant studio stuff and stuff like that. So even things like when you're saying like, okay, like she's worked on an incubator stuff, good words to have is if you competed in something, you can have competed in this. Like for example, when you do like the global game jam, or if you were selected for something, it's nice to say the word I was selected for this, or I was invited to this, or award winner, stuff like that as well too. Words, keywords that will actually make you stand out. You want to think about that when you're crafting your stuff, not like just, oh, I did this and this. If you were a lead in something, you'd be like, lead, blah, blah, blah. And if you were saying something like, okay, what is this? You know, like, oh, am I working for a project for a client that has like a good name? You want to put that in there as well too. Or if you worked on a project that's viral, you can be like, oh, with over like a million view, something like that as well too. Those are key concept points when you're explaining your experience. You want to pull out so that way the person who's reading this will see that you kind of stand out more than other stuff as well too. So these are all like little selective things as well, and you can see that like this title is the same size as all the other title first, and then the second one. So like I said, there's a uniform in the way that the stuff is displayed. So not everything is like, you know, like everything is kind of aligned and stuff. So that's really one big thing that helps a lot as well too. So let's see. Let me see if Ida's stuff can still be pulled out or is super expired. So it might be expired, so we can definitely see hers. But just in terms of even if you have an art station, for example. So that's like art station, not really a thing. Okay, so I think that's basically like covering the basics of having looking at stuff, you know, like resumes on a general basis. And if anybody wants to submit in their portfolio and cover letter or resume for review, like for next week, just send that to me too. And you can even email me, or you can DM me, or you can put it on this thread that we have here, because I think it's very helpful for people to see individual stuff, because resumes from one field to another are not the same. I came from a design, graphic design background, and then I went into animation. And at first, I used a design background, like a design kind of thing, and it doesn't match. So when you're doing things, a lot of things actually are very tailored, even to the studios you applied to. You can even like format things in a PDF way that you can send it over. And whoa, this is going way longer than I expected. But if anybody has any last questions, let me know. I can take a couple of questions. But otherwise, I think what I want to end with for this particular one first is, since we're trying this out, and I hope it is helpful. Thanks, Dan. You think the information is helpful. The main thing about this is that you have to kind of think in a way where, okay, this is what the school has told me, that this is how a resume look like, a portfolio look like, but the main thing is you also have to think in terms of who is looking at my stuff. What is my demographic? What am I trying to portray as my brand when I'm sending these things out? You know, so if I said that I really want to be a concept designer, then everything in my branding should reflect that. If I'm saying that and then I have a logo that says marketing, then that kind of conflicts with what I'm doing. And I'm not saying that you can't have your own other work doing that, but you want to kind of separate that in a way where you can see it. For example, if I'm doing my own stuff on the other side, I can put that as an extra. You know, like I have a blog, so I'll put a blog on the other side. But then I'll have like an overall kind of understanding of what I'm trying to show people. And the other thing too is you can see that Jules here, she has a really nice banner. Wherever you can use space to showcase your work well, you want to do that. If you have like a space up there for your banner and things like that, and you just put something that's doesn't really showcase your concept and design, that's you're actually wasting good real estate. The same thing when you do LinkedIn. I can talk about LinkedIn next time as well too. Like where they have space for you to put your stuff artwork on top. You want to utilize that space and maximize it so that you can actually see that the best too. So I think that's it for today. And thanks, Douglas, for letting us show your work. And I'll definitely be like showing some different like cool stuff as well. Oh, last one that I want to leave you with is also my friend Johel. Johel has a lot of things. He's a really good generalist, basically a unicorn is what I'm gonna say. So when Johel has his stuff, then like some people say that, oh, I have a lot of different things that I do, like that I do well. So how do I showcase that? So in this case, like Johel has something like his art and animation. So for example, when we go look in animation, you can see that he has many different reels. When you send it to a recruiter, you definitely at least want to have one show reel up, or you want to have it to his work. Yohel also worked on Carmen Sandiego, but the main thing is he has different reels for everything. So, for example, if he's going to be applying for a lighting and rendering position, then he can just show his stuff, his lighting and rendering reel right up there. And he has a compositing reel. He has a 2D reel. So he separates the stuff. So if he's going to send something to a recruiter, he could just basically send this URL to the recruiter instead of maybe starting with this one, because then they'll have to search a lot too. But let me put that as well in the address. This is Yohel's reel, and I'm gonna put Amanda's stuff as well too. Hey, Pastel Beru. There we go. Boop. Pastel Beru. Sounds good. Yes, yes, Ryan, I can definitely do that for you as well too. I can review your stuff. So today, Bailey, we were focused a little bit more on concept design and things like that. So if anybody wants to send in different things like animation reel and stuff, we can definitely do that as well too. Or if anybody wanna come and help me do reviews, I still need to figure out this software stuff. Yeah, maybe Pauline, you can help me with that as well, because having difficulties and things. Yeah, but I think that's the main thing. Is I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions and comments, let me know. But the main reason I'm doing this also is because, like I said, I have a lot of different people request a lot of different things throughout the week, and I really have very limited time. So when I am able to actually take this and show it at one time, then I can just copy paste this link, send it to someone else as well too. So thanks for staying with me, and yeah, if you have anything, just let me know. Bye bye. Let me stop my stream.